On October 18th, people all across this country are rising up to say loudly and clearly, America is about democracy, not dictatorship. We rejected kings a long time ago, and peaceful protest is patriotic. It's about loving our country and the promise of America. So join us October 18th. No thrones, no crowns, no kings, because in America, it's we the people who matter.
Stand up.
Yeah, who recognizes that voice? That is the American Federation of Teachers president, my friend Randy Weingarten, with a promo for the protest this weekend. I don't do ads here on Stand Up, but I do advertise protests for free. I hope to see you on Saturday. I hope you'll be attending a No King's Day protest. Welcome to Stand Up. I have got one of the best joining me today. Dr. Christina Greer of Fordham University is my guest. If you want to jump to it, we had a great conversation. It begins at about 30 minutes into today's show. Yesterday, I also spoke live with Dr. Peter Hotez and Dr. Michael Mann about their new book, Science Under Siege. You can watch both of those interviews, Chrissy Greer and my conversation with Drs. Mann and Hotez, on YouTube, youtube.com/standupwithpete. Go over there and subscribe right now for free, and you can watch them. I'll share my conversation with the good doctors on tomorrow's episode of Stand Up. Headed into the city today to be on Michael Ian Black's CNN podcast, not the TV show, but the very popular podcast that partners with it. So I'm looking forward to that, and I hope to see you at a hangout on Thursday night. Tomorrow night, I'll be moderating a local gathering of Democrats in my town, not only the town Democrats that are running for office for our town board, but 4 of the candidates of the 8 that are running in the Democratic primary, which is next June, for the 17th Congressional District where I live in Rockland County, New York. Also covers Westchester County. That is for Mike Lawler, currently is in the seat. So very busy week for me. I'm very happy to have you here on Stand Up. Let's get to your headlines and clips. That's what I do every day here at the top of the show. Yesterday was a huge day of news. Of course, you had the hostage and prisoner release, which was just amazing to see these people reunited with their families. For the Israelis, the release of 20 remaining living hostages, bringing elation and a sense of closure to a war many felt they were forced into by Hamas, although many pledged to fight on the return of deceased hostages still in Gaza. But the living hostages free, the urgency with which many are driven to call for an end to the war will likely diminish, easing pressure on the Prime Minister Netanyahu to advance the next phases of the agreement. And thornier issues remain, according to the Associated Press, such as whether Hamas will disarm or who will govern Gaza. The question of Palestinian statehood remain unresolved, highlighting the fragility of an agreement that, for now, only pauses the deadliest conflict in the history of Israel and the Palestinians. It was amazing to see these families reunited while there was an outburst of joy in Gaza for Palestinian prisoners returning from Israel. Hope that the fighting may wind down for good. The torment drags on for war-weary Palestinians. That's how the Associated Press put it yesterday. And it was just wonderful to see these families just be reunited with their loved ones after years in many cases. So I will take joy and solace in that moment. And I'm not going to give Donald Trump any credit. Everybody's like, oh, he deserves credit. I don't think so. First of all, he wants credit for ending conflicts abroad while waging war here at home. So I'm not giving him credit for that. But also, Joe Biden helped like over 100 hostages get released. Did he get all this credit for it from Republicans? And if he had done some of the things that Trump had done, Republicans would have invited Netanyahu here to shit on him. So Republicans would have prevented Joe Biden from doing this. That is my opinion, and I am not going to change it, and I'm not going to give Donald Trump any credit. Sorry. I don't know. He's a fucking monster. Not doing it. Not doing it. Nor do I think it matters, actually, that he gets any credit. So, all right, well, moving on, there's plenty of other news. Yesterday, I thought this was pretty interesting. The new Pope is urging news agencies to stand as a bulwark against lies. Pope Leo has encouraged international news agencies to stand firm against the ancient art of lying and manipulation, quoting Hannah Arendt, which I thought was a pretty impressive poll. He strongly backs a free, independent, and objective press, and I love to hear that coming out of the Pope. History's first American pope called for imprisoned journalists to be released and said the work of journalists must never be considered a crime. Rather, journalism is a right and a pillar upholding, quote, the edifice of our societies that must be protected and defended. So I like it. I like it a lot, and I think it's hopefully it matters. Hopefully it matters. All right. I thought this is, speaking of media outlets, this is a pretty important issue. Media across the ideological spectrum, including Newsmax, is that the right-wing one? Yeah, they said they will not sign the Defense Department's restrictive new press policy by Tuesday afternoon's deadline. The Washington Post, the New York Times, CNN said they would not sign it, as did Newsmax and the Washington Times. So that is extremely significant. And all these major news outlets, including the right-wing ones, are not going to sign this ridiculous press policy. The Pentagon Press Association, body that represents the beat reporter, says the new policy, championed by Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, gags Pentagon employees and threatens retaliation against reporters who seek out information that has not been pre-approved for release. It's ridiculous. That would be the work of the most authoritarian regimes one could possibly imagine. The Pentagon Press Association said Hegseth and other officials have been systematically limiting access to information about the U.S. military all year long. So, yeah, possible legal action is next, and a really very important development story, and solidarity matters, and I'm very happy to see that story being reported out. I just want to mention another, I guess this is not a news story necessarily, but I think it's important just to mention that Mark Maron's WTF podcast has taped its last episode, where the guest is none other than former President Barack Obama. And it's a really good episode, and I highly recommend you listen to it. But I just want to say that Mark has always been good to me. When I was coming up in the New York comedy scene, he was like a god. I worshipped him. He was always very kind to me. He was always very cool to me. I loved watching him perform, and he's just always been a good guy. I wish I would have been invited on the show at some point, but I was too shy to ask, and they never did. It seemed like the kind of thing that I didn't want to pitch myself for. Never had a publicist. But I also do want to mention that Brendan McDonald, his producer, was my producer at the very beginning of the old radio show when it was still called Pete's Big Mouth, before the Sirius and XM merger. Brendan taught me so much. Such a great guy. Probably one of the funniest, smartest guys I've ever met, and it never, ever surprised me how well Mark did as a result of Brendan producing him. And I'm just also really happy that Mark always gave Brendan credit, and Obama even name checks Brendan McDonald, who was my former producer, so I felt and have always felt close to that show and to Brendan and Mark. Congratulations to both those guys. I got a couple clips from President Obama speaking with Mark Maron coming up in the clip show, but I did just want to mention that. Mentioned earlier that I talked to Dr. Peter Hotez and Dr. Michael Mann about their new book, Science Under Siege, and I saw that there is a measles outbreak in South Carolina, sending 150 unvaccinated kids into a 21-day quarantine, and did want to mention, whenever there's a measles outbreak, so preventable. If only there was a miracle, amazing, cheap vaccine that could prevent these kids suffering. So there you go. Congratulations, South Carolina. Stock markets bounced back. The Dow gained almost 600 points after Friday's crash. U.S.-China trade showdown hits a pause button. So I don't know what to think. I'm very concerned about my 401k and yours, and anybody that has any kind of investment portfolio, for which I have a very small one. And, for my parents, for anybody, for all of you out there, as a result of all the shenanigans that we see happening, the AI bubble. I hear a lot about that. So I've got a lot of concerns, and probably should be talking with a lot more people about that here on the show. But somehow the market's bounced back. Want to mention that. And I think that's all I want to mention. Yesterday was Columbus Day, or as I call it, Indigenous Peoples Day. And so maybe there wasn't as much news. Maybe I didn't do as good a job as I normally do gathering it, because maybe I took a nap and a half. I don't know. There was a nor'easter. What do you expect from me? Those are your headlines. Let's get to the clip show. Here are the clips that I've gathered for you from yesterday. Let's start with Stephen Colbert, who was back after a week off. I like to start and end with comedy and intersperse wherever I can. Take it away, Stephen.
I'm so happy to be back and seeing everybody. Show was on break last week. Yeah. I went overseas. Thought about, hey, get away from the news for a bit. Also gave me a chance to test the flight part of fight or flight. And turns out they talk about us over there, too. It's like going over to the neighbor's house to avoid the dysfunctional family dynamics. Over there, you can still hear the screaming. It's actually a little more disturbing, hearing it through all that plywood. Now, one part of my little test was successful because I did miss some of the news last week. So when I got back this morning, I asked my crack research team to give me a list of some of the things that happened while I was away. And it's a doozy. It's less we didn't start the fire and more everything's on fire. Here's a partial list of what I missed. The government shutdown is headed into its third week. Trump fired more than 4,000 federal workers. The DOJ charged New York Attorney General Letitia James with fraud after Trump's pressure campaign. Trump sent troops to Chicago and Portland and is threatening to invoke the Insurrection Act. Trump announced a whopping 100% new tariff on China, which caused the stock market to have its worst day in 6 months. And Taylor Swift dropped her new album, The Life of a Showgirl, to merely mixed reviews. Well, those reviewers are just jealous of her talent and of Travis Kelce's majestic redwood. Yes. A sequoia. It is nearly 2,000 years old. I hear it has its own ecosystem.
Was that whole last joke about Travis Kelce's cock? Is that what we're doing? All right, whatever. Last night there was a big rally in New York City for Zohran Mamdani called the Our Time Has Come rally. A lot of great speakers and important folks there, including the current Attorney General, Letitia James, who was very inspiring when she got the opportunity to stand at the microphone in the rally where there was it was amazing energy last night at that rally in New York City. Here's Tish James, who's just been indicted by the 34-time felon Donald Trump.
You see, I know what it feels like to be attacked for just doing your job. But I also know what it feels like to overcome adversity. And so I stand on solid rock. And I will not bow. I will not break. I will not bend. I will not capitulate. I will not give in. I will not give up. You come for me, you gotta come to all of us. All of us. Every single one of us. We're all in this together. You see, I've learned to stand on the shoulders of my ancestors who came before me and weathered the storm. And despite being seared with scars, they survived. And if they can survive, so will we. So over the last few days, I've summoned their strength and their courage. And I will keep fighting for justice. I will keep fighting for New Yorkers. I will keep fighting the aggressive policies of Washington, D.C., and I will not stop.
Yeah, there you go. That's how just a little bit of the comments, the speech given by the New York Attorney General is obviously not backing down. All right, here is Chris Christie talking about that, by the way. I think this is from ABC's This Week on Sunday. Either way, I think this is pretty important that you're hearing this kind of rhetoric and specifically what the former Attorney General and former governor of New Jersey has to say.
We know why this was done. It was done because Donald Trump told the Justice Department to prosecute Letitia James. And when the professionals there wouldn't do it, he put somebody in who would just follow his instruction, whose previous job was reviewing exhibits at the Smithsonian. So that's what we see going on here. And here's the difference between Trump 2 and Trump 1. And I'll say it more directly than Sarah did. This is no longer, the Department of Justice is no longer the premier prosecuting office in America. What it is now is a capo regime who goes out and executes hits when directed by the Don to do so. That's what it is.
Wow-wee, Chris Christie. Not holding back right there. And neither is Martin Sheen, who sat down with Nicole Wallace at this MSNBC live event that took place on Sunday. Here is the former fake president.
So the big guy in the White House, if he would take some personal advice, you've got to realize, sir, that you are the biggest nothing in the world. And sir, you stop there. You stop listening to all these people around you, these sycophants, who are encouraging you to be your non-human self. Get in touch with that humanity. Stop fussing with your hair. And don't worry about your tie. And stand up straight and speak clearly, not from your throat. Speak from your heart. And start being human. That's what you were made for, not golf. So there you are, Mr. President. With all due respect, sir.
All right. There you go. Nicole Wallace seemed to enjoy it. All right. Let's listen to our Transportation Secretary, Sean Duffy. He, amongst many others on the right in the administration, trying to make it seem like this Saturday's No Kings protest is everybody's getting paid and we're all terrorists. Here he is.
But again, the No Kings protest, Maria, really frustrating. I mean, this is part of Antifa, paid protesters. It begs the question, who's funding it? But, yeah, Democrats want to wait for a big rally of a No Kings protest when the bottom line is, who's running the show in the Senate? Chuck Schumer's not running the show. The No Kings protesters or organizers are running the show. Is AOC threatening a primary against Chuck Schumer? Is she running the show? But you need a strong leader in the Senate to take control and make decisions. And Chuck Schumer's blown in the breeze. He has no power, no authority, because he's given it up to his primary opponent, potentially in AOC, or to the No Kings protester organizers. And it's shameful.
Shameful. It's democracy in its greatest form. Jackass. What a bag of shit. Sean Duffy. Oof. All right. Well, that's how I feel. Speaking of bags of shit, Steve Bannon. I got a Steve Bannon clip for you. He was on News Nation with this, I guess this conservative woman, I forget her name, but she has like her own segment on that dumb network, News Nation, which I used to appear on regularly, several times. It is real dumb. They try to position themselves as centrists. They're the worst. They're right wing, to be fair. Very fair. Anyway, here is just how right-wing they are when they were hosting Steve Bannon, who said, forget about the Constitution. Trump will run again in 2028. They'll figure it out if they have to prop him up.
Let me ask you about Trump 2028. We have a 22nd Amendment, which bars anybody from running for a third term. Do you think that that's not a barrier for him, or how do you see that?
I think that there are many different alternatives that at the appropriate time after the midterms in 26, we will roll out. But I think there are many different alternatives to make sure that President Trump is on the ballot. And if he's on the ballot, he'll win.
Imagine if that was the timeline. I don't know. He'll probably be dead of natural causes by then. We can pray. All right. Well, let's move on to Hakeem Jeffries, who had this to say on MSNBC or MS Now, whatever the hell it is. He was on with Katie Tur, who is just not good, and she's never been good, and she tries this false equivalency here. Anyway, here it is.
Have you met with Speaker Mike Johnson?
No, Speaker Mike Johnson and I have not met.
Why
They've
not?
made the decision. Donald Trump has not given them permission to meet, Katie. And we know that until Donald Trump gives them permission to meet, they're going to continue to hide as it relates to sitting down and negotiating a bipartisan agreement.
All right. Well, there you go. Hakeem Jeffries, no movement on the government shutdown negotiations, it would seem. But they're asking, why haven't you met with Mike Johnson? And what do you think? I don't know, because Daddy won't let him. Daddy won't let him come out and play. All right, here's Reverend David Black. And he was on CNN with Aaron Burnett, who was asking him about getting shot at the Broad Street ICE facility in Chicago. I believe that's where it was. You all saw that video, I'm sure, of the priest being shot in the head. He was also tear gassed, this guy. And I don't know, I thought this is a pretty interesting first-person account. Here you have it.
You're saying that what they are alleging there is not true. I want to show another moment, Reverend, where a large group of ICE agents are walking towards you. So here they are. They're walking towards you. They're shoving you. I just want everyone to get a chance, so now they can see you. They know who you are there. You're obviously you've got your clerical collar on. They are spraying what appears to be pepper spray at that time directly into your face. This, I've been, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe is after you had been hit with the pepper balls in the head. Do you know why they did this to you?
No, there was no warning for any of these things. After they shot me in my head and my face and multiple times in my torso, arms, and legs, I was shielded by the bodies of others who were there, who rushed in to support me and took many more hits that were intended for me. I was then guided away to a place where street medics helped to wash out my eyes and try to keep me safe. But I was completely disabled at that point. And within 2 minutes, quite a number of ICE officers, maybe 15, maybe 20, rushed out of the gate and began to shove us down. And I was already disabled on the ground, but attempted to get away. And they continued to shove us in a kettling maneuver towards a place where we would not be able to escape as they brandished their weapons. And you can see in that video ICE officers shoving protesters who were standing and speaking and chanting and singing peacefully and praying peacefully, shoving us down and then dispensing a huge amount of chemical weapons onto us. I was drenched from the crown of my head to the socks in my shoes. It was indiscriminate and it was vicious.
I know you said that they were laughing. There were some of the agents laughing after this happened. Can you tell me more about that, what they did, and at that moment, what you thought?
Yeah, we could hear them laughing as they were shooting us from the roof, and it was deeply disturbing. We've gotten to witness a few things about these ICE agents operating in Broadview, and really what it has shown us is how disorganized they are and how poorly supervised and trained they are. We've also heard ICE agents talking to each other, one of whom said, man, I don't even remember why I'm here anymore. And the other said, I don't know either. So there's a deep demoralization that we are seeing as we're bringing this peaceful and spiritual protest against their tactics and what they are doing to our city and our communities and our neighbors. And I'm grateful to show up with these protesters, people who deeply believe in democracy and are bringing peaceful and moral witness against what the Trump administration is trying to do in Chicago.
There you go, Reverend David Black on CNN. And now let's go to those clips of former President Obama sitting down with Mark Maron. I got two of them for you. I thought they're great. I think the whole conversation is great. Take it away, gents.
When you have military that can direct force against their own people, that is inherently corrupting. When you have what looks like a deliberate end run around not just a concept, but a law that's been around for a long time, posse comitatus, that says, you don't use our military on domestic soil unless there is an extraordinary emergency of some sort. That when you see an administration suggest that ordinary street crime is an insurrection or
a terrorist act,
that is a genuine effort to weaken how we have understood democracy.
There you go. There's a little bit. Now here's more from the former president. It gets a little deeper here, talking about culture and talking about Mark, and I love this.
Buying stuff and having stuff, and so much of our culture now, so much of what we teach our kids is geared around buying stuff and having stuff, and posting it on Instagram and then
right. It's winning to some people.
Right. Winning is now defined solely by material goods, how much you got, and to some degree fame. That's become another currency, right?
Right.
And I do think part of what our conversation needs to be more about is, and it used to come out of the church or the stories we told our kids was this sense of, oh, you know what? Character matters. Honesty matters. Community and family and loyalty and kindness matters. Those are the stories that's part of our political project, right? Is reaffirming that stuff. I mean, I think you were asking how I navigated some of these conflicts, and I'd get attacked from the right and I'd get attacked from the left. One way I did that was trying to tell people what I really thought. But, the other thing was I actually had some pretty old-fashioned values, even if I had, progressive or newfangled ideas.
Yeah.
If I talked about trans issues, I wasn't talking down to people and saying, oh, you're a bigot. I'd say, you know what? It's tough enough being a teenager. Let's treat all kids decently. Why would we want to see kids bullied?
Or shamed.
Yeah. Why would we want to do that? Why wouldn't we want to just, what if it was our kid?
Yeah.
Right? And I think spending more time talking about why those values are important, not being cynical about them, not being ironic about it.
Yeah.
But saying, no, that stuff matters.
Sure.
That would make a difference.
All right. Well, we've got our work cut out for us.
Yeah. You know what? I think we're going to be okay, and I think that part of the reason you had such a big fan base during this 16-year run is there was a core decency to you and the conversations you had, maybe slightly edited by Brendan.
Yeah, thankfully.
that I think speaks to who we are. And, we can't take this stuff for granted, but my experience is most people are really decent. Well, and I think that's why when they hear somebody else who is, it gives them courage, and gives them hope, and you should be proud of having done that.
Well, thank you, Mr. President, and thank you. And I'm glad I made the trip. You came to my house the first time. I'll come here, and I hope to talk to you again.
We'll meet halfway next time.
Okay, buddy. Thanks, man.
All right.
All right. Oh, I love it. It warms my heart. And so did this, because this is the cold opening of The Late Show with Stephen Colbert last night. And they included a couple news clips, some video of the frog protesters and naked bike riders in Portland, and then a great, funny send-up of the American legend Kermit the Frog singing a parody. And I loved it. It's even better to watch, but good enough to listen to, and a great way to end the clip show. Here it is.
Portland, Oregon, where it looks like a war zone.
Trump has been conjuring an apocalyptic portrait of Portland, Oregon. We're going to show you the reality on the ground that is painting a very different picture.
Protesters in Portland called an emergency naked bike ride this weekend to protest the president's attempt to send federal troops to their city.
Large inflatable frogs have become a common sight at anti-ICE demonstrations there.
And now a response from the leader of the frog resistance.
Trump thugs in ski masks, and why do they have to hide? You can spray us with pepper, but we won't surrender. We'll respond with a naked bike ride. So march through our city, we'll stand stand up to fascism, the chicken, the T-Rex, and me.
Yeah, I love it so much. That was the cold opening last night. You got to watch it too. It was actually a Kermit Muppet singing it. It was so good. All right, those are your headlines and your clip show. I cannot do it without your support. Patreon.com/Pete Dominic. Please, let's get to 800 subscribers and then the 3,000 someday. How about it? All right. Well, my very special guest today is an associate professor, hopefully soon to be a full professor of political science at Fordham University at Lincoln Center in New York City. She is an expert on a wide range of issues. She's got a whole bunch of degrees, a real academic. She went to Tufts and Columbia and, of course, has a PhD in political science from there. She is the author of Black Ethnics, Race, Immigration, and the Pursuit of the American Dream, as well as more recently, How to Build a Democracy, from Fannie Lou Hamer and Barbara Jordan to Stacey Abrams. And she writes a weekly column for Amsterdam News in New York City. And she is always a commentator on all things New York City politics, the co-host of FAQ NYC. Ladies and gentlemen, let's do it right now with Dr. Christina Greer, my friend Chris. I'm very excited that you're here. I feel like we have to talk about autumn. Welcome. Hi.
Autumn in New York.
A nor'easter. It's a nor'easter here in New York as we're speaking, but I'm very happy that you're here in October. I usually get to talk to you about once a month here on the record, so this is it. We're very excited. How are you?
I love being here. Great. Eating this elephant one bite at a time.
I like that answer for how are you, but there's a lot to discuss with someone like you, an expert, an analyst like yourself. Obviously, we can talk about the New York mayoral race, which just to question, how much does the nation pay attention to, or should the nation pay attention to, New York City's mayoral race, for which you are an expert on?
Well, in the past, I mean, it gets some sort of national attention. I mean, we are the economic engine for the country. So, with Wall Street. So who leads New York does matter. And this race has been quite interesting and peculiar, right? Where we've had the sitting mayor not running as a Democrat, and then the sitting mayor deciding not to run for re-election, and then the former governor who runs in a Democratic primary and loses terribly, right, and gets super spanked, and then comes back and runs in the general as an independent, even though he's, a Nepo baby Democratic governor and his daddy was a Democratic governor. And then you've got this 33-year-old Muslim Democratic socialist who has no citywide experience and a few years in Albany, who is connected with New Yorkers of all different stripes in ways that we have not seen since maybe Barack Obama, but his message has been super tight, super clear, and it's resonating with people who make, I say this all the time, people who make $40,000 and people who make $400,000. Everyone's feeling the squeeze in New York about housing, about groceries, about transportation, about our future. And I thought that a lot of folks would, when things are crazy at the top of the country, meaning the federal government, if folks are like, oh, I just want the status quo, like I'm too afraid to sort of try anything new because things are so uncertain. But we've seen the opposite thus far in New York. I mean, he's not out of the woods yet. Our November 4th election will show us whether or not people really have gone to progress or if they're just going to go back with Andrew Cuomo, who they've known for many, many decades, who has sort of some scandals, plural. But a lot of folks, at least during the primary and during the summer, were like, I want to take a chance. This guy is giving them hope in the political process for the first time. So that's the Zohran Mamdani campaign that feels just very young and fresh and interesting.
What do you make of the national Democrats or Democrats running in other states that are running away from him when their critics try to connect them to Zohran Mamdani, whether it be the guy in my town, just north of New York City, Democrat running for town council, or somebody running for Senate in Kentucky, or Hakeem Jeffries, who is the minority leader in the House, and Chuck Schumer, who is the Senate minority leader, both New Yorkers. What do you make of that, the current kind of debate and discussion around being connected to this guy, Democratic socialist?
Yeah. Well, I think they're kind of three separate strains.
Yeah.
I think sometimes people get caught up on labels. So obviously, anytime you hear the word socialist or communist, it sort of shuts people down. And so this idea that he's a democratic socialist that people don't really know or understand. We kind of get wrapped up in semantics. I think, too, for some people, they're running away from it because they'd actually have to deliver, and it's something that their donors wouldn't necessarily want. We know that, sadly, the Venn diagram of Democratic and Republican donors overlaps, especially, at higher offices in very uncomfortable ways. Things that he's talking about is like a class conversation that Bernie Sanders sort of has, but Bernie Sanders has like no racial analysis. So he's not someone I care for at all. But Zohran Mamdani has been able to weave through like a historic racialized analysis with a class analysis. And then as far as like Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries, one, I don't think that both Democratic leaders should be from New York. I know New York is important, but I think that as a party, we need geographic diversity. Two, I think Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries have shown us time and time again that they're not leaders. They're great statesmen, but they're not leaders in a time of crisis. And so the fact that Zohran Mamdani is the Democratic nominee, big D Democratic nominee, and they can't find a way to articulate to the larger Democratic Party some of the issues that clearly Democrats care about. I mean, living in New York right now, Pete, is unsustainable. And I don't know how people with families are doing it. When you go to the grocery store and you spend $65 and you barely have one bag, right? And I'm not buying foie gras. Like I'm literally just trying to buy groceries. So those are the types of things that he's talking about. And it's like, so Hakeem Jeffries, don't get so caught up in leading the 200 some odd Democrats across the country where you forget about the people in Brooklyn who sent you there. So I think that a lot of the issues that Zohran Mamdani is talking about are of great importance to not just New Yorkers, but people across the country. And a lot of Democrats, quite honestly, don't want to confront a lot of those issues.
What do you make of the current government shutdown and we're headed into a third week here? Who is that? It feels like a lot of people don't even know what's happening, Chrissy. And if you're paying close attention to politics, I think the question you're asking is like, who's going to get the blame? But what do you make of the Democrats' strategy here? Who's going to get the blame and who's suffering as a result of the government shutdown?
Well, I think, Pete, in our circles, we don't have a lot of people who necessarily work for the government. So like we haven't felt it. But I know that there are a lot of communities that are struggling, right? I mean, churches and religious institutions are picking up the heavy lifting because people can't afford groceries. Or this is the sad thing is, people stop going to doctor's appointments and buying pills and trying to figure things out on the cheap because they just can't afford it. And then this is where we get long-term health effects. Here's the thing. We've had 5 government shutdowns in the past 20 years, and 3 of them have been under the great negotiator, Donald J. Trump. The Republicans control the presidency, they control the House, they control the Senate. This man is supposedly a master negotiator, yet and still we have a government shutdown. The government shutdown, the whole premise of it, and this is where the Democrats drive me insane because they can't ever articulate a message to the masses. The reason why Democrats aren't coming to the table to negotiate is because Republicans are trying to take away their health care. So they're saying, listen, you don't have health care right now because the Democrats won't come to the table, and the Democrats are rightfully not coming to the table because they know when they come to the table, people lose their health care. That is the crux of the fight. So it's like, I don't know. I can't do your job for you. Explain to the American people the reason why we are going through this painful moment right now is because if not, you will be screwed for generations.
Yeah.
Because Republicans have been very clear that they want to take away your health care. And what we've seen in the work that I do, Pete, is that there are lots of people, white people, who want and need health care. And they believe in it. And they're Republicans. Where the rubber hits the road is when we start saying, okay, so then everybody can get health care. It's like, no, I don't want everybody to get health care. I want it, but I don't want these undeservings to get it. And by undeservings, we can go down the long list of people who Republicans have identified as undeserving. And there's nothing in the literature in the bill that says undocumenteds get it, first of all, even though they pay taxes. But there's nothing even in the bill that says undocumenteds get it. So
not only do they not get it, they are not even allowed to buy health insurance. Right. I'm old enough to have covered the Obamacare negotiations, and one of the stipulations Republicans put in is undocumented people would not be allowed to buy health insurance, which is crazy because conservative Republicans should absolutely want everybody, if they can afford it, to buy insurance so that you don't have to pay for them at the emergency room, which of course is not care. And now they're even questioning whether or not if an undocumented person that's working on a farm or in a chicken plant has their arm cut off, should that person get treatment at the ER, or should they and their stump be allowed to bleed out and die in the streets? That's, I think, the negotiation. But
these are the Christians we're dealing with. These
they
are the
don't,
so-called
I think,
Christians.
understand that Jesus didn't create Christianity.
Well, what they don't understand could fill the Grand Canyon.
They don't know that.
But they want people to live in the shadows so then they can be abused. I mean, that's what happens when people live in the shadows.
Well, even if they don't, yeah, of course, even if they don't want that, getting back to the undeserveds and all of that, like, don't you think the reason why someone like Marjorie Taylor Greene is stepping up and other Republicans are going to be like, listen, not only is this affecting conservative Republicans who buy health insurance on the markets through Obamacare that are going to have their premiums skyrocket, but people with private policies through their employers are also going to have their premium, like Republicans' constituents, quote, hardworking white folk that work at safe jobs are going to have their insurance go up. Like, everybody's going to notice that. And it would seem like,
right. But the thing is, though, Pete, all Republicans have to say is the Democrats did this because they support colored people. And folks will believe it. I mean, like, we're in that level of, that's all they have to say. Even though they control all the levers of power right now, and we know that when you're in the minority party, you have zero power. All they have to say is the Democrats did this to you because they want to give all these Latinos and black people and et cetera, that you see walking around and you think that this country is getting way too black and brown and these folks are getting way too uppity. This is why you now pay $75 at the doctor's office for your copay as opposed to $50. Period. And folks eat it up. I mean, this is the LBJ quote that I'm always saying. It's like, if you can convince the poorest white man that you're better than the Negro, you can pick his pockets all day long. Hell, he'll even open his pockets for you. And it's like, all you have to do is just say, you don't have because they took it from you. And they can be whoever the boogeyman is of the moment. Du jour. Trans kids took it for you playing sports. Drag queens took it from you. Black people who were mayors of cities took it from you. Like, the list goes on. And then you can just rob them blind. And that is what has happened. Jonathan Metzl had that great book, Dying of Whiteness. It's like, y'all are poor. You don't have any teeth in Appalachia, but you're voting against dental care? Like, your kids are dying by suicide and getting shot up in school, Catholic school and public school, and on their way to school by their own classmates whose parents know they have mental health issues and keep buying them guns, yet you fight for gun rights constantly, even though you know your kids are dying and not safe. I mean, like, the list goes on and on.
I just talked to this journalist and historian author who's written this new book, the show posted today for anybody watching or listening, named Colin Woodward. And his new book is called Nations Apart. I'd love to know what your thoughts are on it if you ever read it or are familiar with it. But one of the things that he comes out with is, in his research, is that public health outcomes are better for even lower income folks in Democrat-run states than they are for higher income folks in red states. And if that statistic is true, it's like a statistic that we should really be probably talking a lot more about and campaigning on, because of the more robust public health systems, well-funded systems, accessible systems, a little higher quality, a little lower cost, still not affordable in blue states than in red states. It's wild if true. I think it's true.
Yeah. Well, I mean, also, let's just point of clarification. It's blue run states, but like all these states are red states.
Yeah, I
just
appreciate you
blue
always.
cities and red states. Like, it's states that happen to have blue leadership. But other than that, I mean, this is how we get 2 terms of Donald J. Trump. There's a lot of purple going on that we want to say is blue, but it's not the case.
I have my list of things to ask you next. Are you ready?
Okay.
Yeah. Why are you acting like annoyed?
Because I saw something there and I'm about to send you a text.
Oh, you did? Really? On my list? Okay. So the other you mentioned blue cities. So on my list, I also don't include potential possible segues, and you just mentioned one, so I just insert them. Blue cities. So I want to ask you about Portland and Chicago and the reaction that folks in those cities are having, and the leadership of both the cities and states are having to Trump's invasion. What are your thoughts on how you're seeing people react in both those states or anywhere else to the kind of ICE invasion and everything else?
Yeah, well, as promised during his campaign, I mean, he said he was going to essentially attack American citizens if he felt necessary. And so we know that he thinks that blacks and Latinos are criminals. That's it. And so it's not a surprise that the vast majority of the cities, I think all of the cities have Democratic mayors that he's sort of sent ICE agents into. And Memphis is the only city that doesn't have a Democratic governor at the top of the state. But other than that, they're democratically led cities in Democratic states. And the vast majority have mayors of color, not surprising. And so there's just a level of like, Donald Trump is always, he creates the problem and then sort of, he's an arsonist. Like he literally sets the fire and then it's just, oh my God, there's a fire. Let me help put it out. And like hangs out while everything's burning. It's like, but you started it. So I think that it's what he promised. Half of the people who support it don't even live in cities and don't even interact with undocumented people or immigrants. And we know all of the data shows that undocumented communities are some of the safest communities ever. I mean, and what they're doing is just torturing people. They're ripping communities apart. They're giving people PTSD. There's some children that will never forget. You are creating core horrific memories for people. I mean, especially young people. All of us have core memories as children, right? Hopefully for a lot of people and a lot of your listeners, my core memories by and large, I mean, I tell my parents this all the time. I was like, you guys aren't perfect people, but doggone it, my childhood was bar none. I would not trade it. I was like, I have some really core memories that are just fantastic, and it's not like I got a pony, but it's just like driving around the car, listening to Christopher Cross, like my first Christmas when I got this band tape that I really wanted in my stocking stuffer. Like, just, I know it's crazy, but like, we just, like my 6th birthday where everybody got stung by bees when I was the new girl at the school, like just all this stuff. It was crazy. We like didn't know we had bees and wasps' nests. So everybody like went home and calamine lotion. So I have these core memories, but some of these kids, their core memories are going to be seeing your father ripped from your mother's arms and like disappeared, right? While your mother is screaming bloody murder and then hoping that she doesn't get taken away or just someone not coming home one day. The level of cruelty and harm that they're doing to this country, to say nothing, I won't even talk about the economic pieces that are being ripped apart, but just the fabric of this nation that was tenuous at best, but to like try and return us to this like early 20th century of like whiteness equals smartness, which we know is not true. We know is not true. And that anyone who's not a white man is undeserving and less than intellectually and all the other things. Again, we know is not true. Present company excluded. But I'm just saying, like, this idea where you have just the most incompetent fools running things. And it's like, wow, you can't even see how you're not deserving, right? You're so busy projecting. I mean, every accusation is a confession with this administration. And so I do worry that obviously ICE will come to New York City at some point in time. And we are one of the most diverse cities in the country and always have been. But I'm really hopeful that like our electeds and also New Yorkers, a lot of folks in Chicago are like, get out of here. What you're not about to do is put this person in the car. And we've seen sort of, a different type of protest. But I really pray that we can get out of this without real bloodshed.
Yes. Well, we've already seen some bloodshed. I mean,
yeah, we have.
Shoot and kill people.
We've already seen innocent people killed. I mean, for my birthday this year, I know this sounds so corny, but I was with my friends in Lisbon who I love, spent a lot of time with them. And they were like, what do you, gave me the little sparkler on my donut for my birthday. And they were like, what do you wish for? And I was like, world peace. I know that sounds crazy, but like, I need everything to just calm down. I need people to sort of have some compassion and grace in their hearts. And this level of cruelty that these anonymous men in masks who are doing this like G.I. Joe cosplay and just getting off on the fact that they're like ruining people's lives is just, I mean, I study America. I'm not surprised by this. This is not new, but it's really hard to digest in a 21st century context when I did think, maybe very naively, that we were beyond like the blatant cruelty that we're seeing.
Huh. I'm surprised to hear you say that you thought we were beyond the blatant cruelty. I could hear, I could imagine you saying, I never thought we were there, or wherever people.
Oh, no. Like, listen, everyone's like, oh, I thought we were moved on. No, I didn't say that. But the type of cruelty that we're seeing, we know the underground and the sort of tacit and the sort of implicit cruelty has been there and exists. And for a lot of communities, sure, but like literally men jumping out of a car and dragging a woman out of her car in the pickup line because they assume that she's undocumented. I didn't think we were there. We weren't there. We weren't there last year. Like we weren't there in the past 10 years. We weren't there in the past 20 years. Just like randomly kidnapping people in the middle of the street in broad daylight.
Is there anything that you particularly ascribe that cruelty to?
White supremacy.
Yeah. But there's always been white supremacy, but it feels like it's now has a lot more of a permission structure from
emboldened white supremacy. It never went away. It's like they're the cicadas. They went underground.
That became
it's like, you know how Jill Stein's the election cicada? She pops up every 4 years. That's her cycle. Like the white supremacists, they just
really interesting analogy that white supremacy was just, underground cicadas. And then every several years, they pop up and they flood the world.
And they're like locusts and they just come and it's like, what are we supposed to do?
Yeah.
So, and the thing is, sometimes with the locusts that were in Kenya and sometimes the cicadas that are in the States, they don't come in the cycle that we assume that they're coming in. Right. So it's like, for global warming and all this other stuff. So it's like, they must not be coming. And I think that there was, for a lot of Democrats and these pink hat people, they were just like, Obama, like the cicadas aren't coming. And it's like, no, the cicadas are absolutely coming. And then when they came the first time with Donald Trump, it's like, okay, so we won't see them again because he's gone and we have Joe Biden now. And then when he came back, it's like, oh, well, it won't be real. And then he was like, no, follow me for those of you who want to. I can make sure that we just push this country back. We don't have to talk about Black Lives Matter. We don't have to talk about equity. Because guess what? When there's real competition, white men don't win.
Not only that, I mean, how dare you? Again, with the attacking white men. It's not only that, it's the erasure of history, which we've been talking a lot about, and the promotion of these anti-discriminatory policies, not only in the public sector government, but as well as in the private sector. I am encouraged, but by the way, the locust being the analogy for white supremacy is great because I have a bias against creatures in the natural world that I find are ugly. I don't think I'm alone in that, but I find the locust very ugly. You're very connected to the natural world. I mean, the locust is a perfect, I feel like, representation of an ugly human.
Yeah, agreed.
I'm just going to leave it awkward and silent for a while before I move on, which is, aren't you encouraged? I'm encouraged.
I'm always encouraged.
Huh?
What are you encouraged by? I said I'm always encouraged. What are you encouraged by?
I'm encouraged to see people in their local communities doing their best to protect those who are most vulnerable. It's not nearly enough, but we are inspired by those who did this kind of work in the past. I accept this is where we're at. This authoritarianism, I think, is my new best word because people don't understand fascism. I accept that this is where we're at. I think it's important to accept it so that we can then go and do whatever we need to do to protect vulnerable people and communities. And I'm seeing a lot of that. I'm also inspired by the type of nonviolent protests that we're seeing and the satire that is kind of coming along with it, from a naked bike ride in Portland yesterday to these inflatables that clearly are nonviolent. I'm inspired by all of that. What do you think of some of the reaction from some Americans in their cities and in their communities to looking out for others?
Absolutely. I agree. But I also agree with you that it's not enough. It's not enough people. And for far too long, a lot of people were like, I'm one of the good ones. But everyone in my family, they do the opposite of what I do. I'm cool. They're bad. And it's like, you should have been doing the work because now we're here again and again. So like, I'm so tired of, that's like the people who come up to you after the meeting. It's like, hey, Pete, I totally agreed with what you said. But when you were in there going at it alone and I didn't speak up and totally didn't support you and just let you swing out there by yourself, that was that. Usually, but now that no one's around and it's after I get this shit all the time, but it's like now that no one's around, like, I totally agree with what you said. And it's like, well, this isn't helpful to me. Actually, I like you less. Keep your mouth shut. Either come into battle or just don't say anything, because saying something after the fact just makes me have less respect for you. But I think that there are a lot of these voters where it's like, I voted the right way. Well, everyone in my family voted the wrong way, but I'm cool. And it's like, so you didn't want to do any of the work? You didn't want to explain to them the dangers afoot. Not just, maybe not for them, but for everybody else. Like, you didn't want to do any heavy lifting. You just wanted to come over here and pat yourself on the back in front of me. You know, I had this t-shirt someone gave me a while ago. It was like, get woke, stay woke others, which I think is like, that's the key part. There's like a lot of people who are like, I'm woke. And I've been woke for 10 years or 20 years and Obama and 3 terms and yada, yada, and hats and Hillary and all this other stuff. But like, you can tell I'm just so over it. But it's like, but you aren't doing the third step, which is to wake other people up.
Yeah.
Because if that's the case, that means you are a pink hat voting like a red hat. You might as well.
And also just add to that, keep trying to yourself be woke. Like, there are things that are happening in our culture, in our society, that are changing that I, as a now old, am not always comfortable with. And so what I
You're not
try.
yet 50 though.
Huh?
You're not yet 50. When's your birthday again?
18 days. So nobody's counting. So
I am. Wait, when's your birthday again? Your
July
Halloween.
13th. Your birthday is July 13th. So anyway.
Somebody telling people my government birthday. Oh, I have October 31st right here on my phone.
I have.
That's right.
Why don't you ask your assistant when my birthday is? So
I don't have an assistant.
I can't believe it. I know. I can't believe it's not on a Post-it note. Anyway, I'm saying you should continue to try to be woke and be curious about the things that you don't like or might be uncomfortable with. I won't name mine, but they're there. All right.
Well,
I want to ask you about the attack coming from the Trump administration on its enemies list. Our Attorney General here in New York, Tish James, pretty well. She's the latest on the list that he's come after. Before that, it was James Comey. Both of them put out these videos, which I thought were very effective. Whether you like Comey or not, or Tish James or not, I thought their videos, they're just two camera, I'm fearless, I'm going to fight this, inspiring kind of videos. But what do you make of those attacks? And specifically, obviously, you know Tish James very well and how she's reacted to and handled it.
Well, I mean, those two aren't the first, right? I mean, don't forget, he's come after Democratic mayors. He's come after Democratic governors. He's come after Lisa Cook from the Fed, allegedly for mortgage fraud. So that's like his new thing. Black women mortgage fraud, right? He's going after Fannie Lewis in Georgia. That's his thing because he's an autocrat and he wants to take down anyone he sees as potential enemies. And he's got enough folks around him who are letting him just try and bring up flimsy charges. Even respected Republican DOJ folks who were just like, the office isn't supposed to be partisan. I know you appointed me, but it's wrong. It's borderline illegal. And also it's not in the confines of my job to just make up stuff in the court of law. So I think that Comey and James will be able to fight this, but it costs a lot of money, so hopefully there are people who will donate to her defense fund, because this is a time waste. Now, granted, she's got a very effective office. They run a very tight ship in her office. So, like, while she has to deal with this, I mean, she was very clear. I am still Attorney General. I will still do the duties that you all elected me to do. But it is so frustrating that you have not just a president who's into this, but so many people around him who are willing to aid and abet this type of behavior. The lucky thing is, sadly, as we have experienced people who were like, I can't work for just basically a wannabe dictator who just wants me to make up the law. Like, I respect the law too much. As those people leave, which is really frightening and sad, the only, I guess, slightly saving grace is that the people he puts in are so grossly incompetent that judges are like, what is this? This isn't even like first week paralegal writing. Like, why are you here? So that, to me, gives me a little bit of hope, even though we shouldn't even have to be here. But it's not like he's got tight cases and, effective people. To say that there isn't a racial and gendered context to these attacks on Karen Bass and Fannie Willis and Lisa Cook. I mean, he's obsessed with Lisa Cook. I was like, so all the people in the Fed, just her, just the one black lady. You have to have her gone. You're going to go all the way to the Supreme Court just to kick her off, because you have told universities, you told law firms, you told all these other entities, I want all the women gone. I want all the people of color gone. And I definitely want all the women of color gone. Toot sweet. So
unless they support the kind of historical patriarchy this country has led with and the historical racism. So the sexism and the racism, and that's why I wanted to ask you about your good friend Winsome Earl Sears. She is a black woman running for governor in Virginia. She's currently the lieutenant governor, and she would seem to be one of those people in the category that is going to uphold the
uphold it. Listen, as my grandfather would say, she's a lost ball in high weeds. Descriptive and substantive representation are real. So yes, she is a black woman, but like, let's be clear. The same way women can be the keepers of patriarchy, white women for generations, right? The same way that you can have, non-white people uphold white supremacy. We see it all the time. Kash Patel, Vivek Ramaswamy, Nikki Haley, like Usha Vance. You can have non-white people uphold white supremacy. And so this is her ticket. Now, I talk to my colleagues all the time. We all say, listen, if I decided to run as a Republican, let's just say I was like, I want to run for office, and I decided to run as a Republican. Do you realize I could probably be governor in like 20 minutes? I'd probably be like the star of the Republican Party.
Yeah.
Because all you need is black people to say crazy stuff about black people and co-sign the fiction that, it's black on black crime and lack of fathers and all the sort of tropes that they trot out there with flimsy data that does not exist or hold up the second they're challenged. But all you have to do is just go with the like tired old Republican talking points that make conservatives and white supremacists feel really comfortable. And I'd probably be vice president. Like, not kidding. Now, would I be scared to death to meet my ancestors? Yes. Like, I can't do anything for money. Like, that's ridiculous. But some people
I find it hard to imagine that you could, or that the people who do that, like somehow flip, they're entirely like grifters, or that they don't, that there usually isn't some kind of catalyst for what they believe, like a Candace Owens or that black woman on Fox News. Like, I think she's, what's her name? I would like to call her out by her name. I'm forgetting her name, but I think she's a kind of, she knows better.
I think it's two categories. I think they're the people who are flip-floppers and they're doing it for money and they don't believe it, and the cameras go off and they're like, okay, well, whatever. And then I think that there are some people who are true believers. That's, white supremacy is real. Like, you don't have to be white to subscribe to it. So like, there are some black people who are just like, yes, like if black people could only do this, then maybe we'd be as good as whites. And it's like, because you think that you're inferior. Wow. Okay. So I think that some people are true believers, but I think that a lot of people are just like, let's make this money. I don't care. I can say it. Yeah. Like,
her name is Harris Faulkner. By the way, my new podcast, As Good as the Whites, is going to be premiering in just a couple of weeks. So I'm looking forward.
What does that mean? What does as good as the whites mean?
I don't know. You just said if we can be as good as the whites, and it made me laugh.
So this world is cuckoo bananas. I'm just, I'm trying to find happiness where I can because everyone's crazy.
Speaking of finding happiness where you can, what do you want to leave us on? Where are you finding happiness where you can?
Nature, of course, nature. Even if it's rainy. So two things have happened. So lately, like, birds have just been coming to me like I'm Snow White. I don't know what's happening, but on my bestie's birthday, I think her mom came to visit me in the form of a cardinal, but it was a female cardinal who sat on my little terrace area for 5 minutes and ate while I was just like at the window, like, Miss Linda, is that you? And then Morning Dove did the same thing last week for another friend of mine who had just lost his mom. So I just feel like I haven't had time to go hug trees at the Botanic Garden lately, but I'm just still trying to, like, autumn in New York is just so beautiful. And, last week was so gorgeous and hot, and the leaves were changing, and I collected some leaves when I went to Annapolis, and
I love that. I love that you feel like your friends' mothers came back and visited you in their new bird life body.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Well, cardinals they're always a loved one. Look at this leaf. Isn't that amazing?
Did you do something to it to make it be?
No.
Put it in a book, though?
No.
Why is it just like that and shiny?
I don't know. I don't know if it's like one of the. I don't know what kind of leaf it is.
I think you did.
And no, I have not touched it. This is another one, the little one.
Oh, wonderful!
I haven't touched them at all.
Are you going to?
They were so beautiful.
You do this thoughtful. You make cards out of leaves, don't you?
I do.
Yeah.
This one, I just lost a little bit of a corner of it.
You know, you could make a card for a friend's birthday that's coming up.
I just might. He might even get my special Annapolis leaves.
Oh.
I don't know. We'll see.
Wow.
We'll see.
I did a day. I'll let you